Welcome back to MVM. Today we have a review. This one is for the upcoming game from FFG. It's called Outer Rim. It is a Star Wars licensed game. It's an adventure game for 1 to 4 players. It takes about 2 to 3 hours to play.
It's very cool because you are right inside the Star Wars universe playing this game.
Yeah, you're actually playing as smugglers, bounty hunters, and all the nefarious people in the underbelly of Star Wars that we typically don't get to see outside of Rogue One, which came out a couple years ago. With the excitement of Rise of Skywalker, which is coming out, and the disappointment of Last Jedi, at least for me, this is super exciting because it's going to fill that gap between the next movie, and it's a really cool thematic game. Today we're going to actually give you kind of an overview of what's going on in the game. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's a pretty hefty rule book, and then we're going to spend most of our time going through our actual thoughts about the game. All right, so being that it's an adventure game, it is a longer game. As we said, it is 2 to 3 hours to play. Each of the players is going to represent one of the many different people within Star Wars. You have people like Dr. Alpha, IG-88, Bosk, Lando Calrissian, Boba Fett, all kinds of different people that you can use as your pilot. Your pilot's going to have 2 sides to them. One side of them is going to show your personal goal and any kind of abilities or traits that you may have at the bottom. And then you're always going to have 2 values at the top plus some special abilities. Those values are your combat abilities, or how many dice you're going to roll in combat, and then also the health. And you're also going to start with a ship that is 2-sided. Each player is going to start with the same ship, and you have a choice on which side you wish to use.
So yeah, you're going to either choose you're looking basically at how much movement do I want, what kind of combat do I want, and how many hits am I going to take? And you're choosing between those 2 sides at the start of the game. You're also going to have spots for cargo, crew, and mods.
Yeah, the choice that you're going to make there is going to be dependent upon how you want to play the game. This game can be played in a variety of different ways. You can go out there and do combat with patrols. You can do combat with the various different contacts. You can actually capture those contacts and use them for bounties. Or you can just go around taking cargo from one planet to another. It's all about trying to collect fame, and it's actually a race game. The first player to get to 10 fame in a short game or 12 fame in a longer game is going to win the game. It's going to be a hard stop. And you gain fame from a variety of different ways. You can gain fame from flipping your characters over, from doing personal goals. You can get fame from actually flipping your starship over and doing personal goals for your starship as well.
You can also gain fame from different bounties, different jobs, and from luxury items, which are a special type of item in the market.
Speaking about the market, there are 6 different common stacks of cards. You're going to look through these. You're going to flip the top ones of these up. Each of these is going to represent different things within the game. We're showing them all face down right now, but when you actually start the game, one of those cards from each of these stacks is going to be placed face up. So anybody can buy those at any time when they're on any of the planets. These cards range from things like new ships that you can buy, very specific gear or mods. You have luxury items, you have bounties, you have jobs. And the cool thing is that these card stacks aren't just those types. So when you're looking through the gear, you may actually get some kinds of other types of things in there. So they're kind of mixed together, but those give you an idea of what you're going to get from those stacks. Also, there's going to be a variety of different stacks of cards around the outside of this ring. You're going to notice that the game is broken into a number of different modular boards. They're going to be pieced together in a very specific way. The game tells you to play the game just as you see it right now. However, if you want more variety in your game, you can mix these boards up, take a piece and put it somewhere else. However, the game is going to be a little bit more unbalanced because they've made the game depending upon where these locations are. For instance, you have a lot of the very Empire-heavy planets on this side, then you have the Rebel side on that side. And then the other stack of cards are going to be the planet cards. Each of these individual stacks is going to represent the 2 planets that are right there in front of it. For instance, you have Tatooine and Nal Hutta. And when you look at these cards, you're going to see both Tatooine and Nal Hutta. The great thing about these cards is it's going to tell you in the upper left-hand corner and the bottom right-hand corner what you may encounter at those planets. For instance, Tatooine, you may be able to fight players and then also find contacts. You're not going to be doing combat typically in the game with other players. However, there are cards that allow you to do that and interact with other players. You're typically only going to be battling the patrols that are going to be moving around the outside. That's because each of the players is going to start with one of these dashboards. And on this dashboard, you're going to notice 4 tracks on the right-hand side. These refer to the Hutts, the Syndicates, the Empire, and the Rebels. And when you see all these different levers on here, there's only 3 positions. It's going to be either neutral with any of them, positive with them, or negative with them. This is going to affect your ability to move through them and to be able to do combat with them. You want to have them all positive unless you're going out there just doing combat with the other factions, which you can do in this game. You have a spot down here for your pilot. You have spots all around your player dashboard for all the different kinds of upgrades you're going to do. And then your actual ship is going to lock in right here and possibly upgrade through the course of the game. So then you have this cool databank stack of cards.
Yeah, the data bank is neat. So you're going to have cards at some point that say something like, on an encounter, pull card 40. And you'll see that there are 3 different cards in some cases, and you're going to randomly select one of these to do whatever is on the back. And it's a different variation of what that particular goal is going towards.
Yeah, a lot of those cards interact very specifically with the tokens that you see on the map themselves. These are the contacts that you're going to be going out to interact with, do combat with, or possibly even capture. They come in 3 different levels. You have level 1, level 2, and level 3. And these all are face down at the start of the game, so you don't know who that contact is until you go to that planet and interact with them. The moment that you do, you're going to flip it up and then find that card that refers to that in the data bank. This is really cool because it gives you some varied missions. All these are going to be placed randomly on the board depending upon the marker that's below them. So you have a lot of opportunity to find different things in the galaxy that are very typical of the Star Wars universe. Then you're going to have things like tokens that are going to represent your credits or their money that you're going to be able to spend to go out into the market, and you have all your damage tokens and whatnot. So again, what are you trying to do in the game? You're trying to collect the most fame as quickly as possible. And to do that, you're going to go through a set of 3 actions or 3 things or steps on your turn. At the very start of the game, to set up the game, you're going to pick a pilot, and you're going to take one of those 2 sides of the ship. Your pilot on the bottom hand side of the card is going to tell you how you set it up. And it's going to require you to pull one of those cards from the data bank. And again, there could be multiple different cards. You're going to only select one of them at random. This is going to tell you where your hero is going to start in the galaxy. It's also going to give you either a job that you have to complete at the beginning or some kind of bounty that you have to complete at the beginning. Plus, it could also structurally change your factions in those. So you could be really high with the Rebels at the start or really high with the Empire and so forth. Then you're simply going to hand out some credits depending upon the turn order, and you're going to go right into the game. There are 3 steps, as I mentioned. The very first step is called the planning step, and I'll talk about this one. The planning step, you have to pick one of these 3 actions. One of them is to move, and you're going to move according to whatever your ship's value is. Again, you may have to stop in locations where there's patrols that you have lower faction with or fame with. Or you could just simply stay in the spot that you are and do like an odd job. There's no cards required. You just collect $2,000 or 2,000 credits to be able to spend. The final thing that you could do is simply to rest, and that's to remove all the damage off both your character and off your ship. And you're actually required to rest if you've met any of the thresholds of health on either one of those 2. Then you go into the action step, and you can perform any or all of these action steps that Kira's going to talk about.
Yeah, so the first thing you're going to do is deliver cargo or bounties, depending on if you're in the right location for those or not. You can also go to the market, and if you don't like what's in the market, you can, from one of the 6 stacks, choose to take that top card and put it on the bottom. And you do that for 2 reasons. Either you don't like what's there and you want something better, or you're trying to keep another player from getting that item. After that, you can also do trades.
Yeah, one of the cool things about this game is that you can actually, if you're in the same location with another player, you can trade pretty much anything in the game. You can trade jobs for jobs, cargo, crew for other crew members. And all that is up to the players to make that decision. One thing you can always do, even if you're not in the same location, is you can trade money. You can basically wire money across the galaxy. So if Kira says, hey, I need 2,000 credits to be able to finish this job, and she can say, hey, can you lend me 2,000? I could say yes, and it's not binding. She could promise me 4,000 credits in the future, but it's not binding.
Right.
But that may make me want to go out there and capture, do some very awful things to her. And there is some cards in here that will allow you to do player interaction in that particular way.
The last action that you can take might be one that is on your actual character. Some characters will allow you to do that, like Jyn Erso, who is looking to do battle on very particular planets. So just depending on who your character is, or even some of your other items or cards that you might have additional actions.
Then you have to do an encounter step. There's a variety of different encounter steps that you can take. If you're in one of the different spots on the board, you can do an encounter there. And there's 3 different types of spots. You have planet spots, you have navigation or nav points that you can do encounters with, or there's actually the Maelstrom, which you saw in the Han Solo movie that's right next to Kessel. Each of these is going to require you to do a variety of different things. Either draw cards and do the encounter of whatever that card says from that planet, or that nav point card, or that maelstrom card. Or if you are on a planet, you can actually encounter one of the two contacts that are at that planet. That's by turning them face up, revealing them, and then finding that data bank card and doing whatever it says on there. Possibly recruiting them to make them a crew, fighting them, capturing them. It's up to you and how you wish to do that. The last thing that you can do is you can actually encounter one of the patrols that are moving around the board. These patrols come in four different levels. The very first one has a combat value and a monetary amount of credits you're going to get if you defeat them. And it's basically combat that you're going to be doing in the game. However, the level 2s and 3s are going to gain you fame, and then the level 4s are completely undefeatable. They're just going to pummel you to death and you get nothing from them. And you're going to keep doing this round after round until someone has accrued 10 fame. So let's actually get into the review. We're first going to talk about the things we like about the game. I'll let you start because you're a Star Wars fan as much as I am.
Yeah, I love the theme of the game. For me, it's sold me on it. It kept me in it as we played through it. You really are feeling, you can relate to all the different things you've seen in the movies, and you recognize the characters, you recognize the planets, and the things that you're doing, the bounties and the jobs that you're taking are all very thematic as well, and it all ties in, and you just are in the Star Wars universe while you're playing. It's really lovely.
It's incredibly thematic. Everything that you do revolves around one of the books or one of the movies or one of the cartoons that you've seen in the past. It gives you that ability to do something in Star Wars that you typically don't do, and that's be one of these people in the universe, either, delivering illegal cargo somewhere or capturing people and turning them into the Empire. And it allows you a lot of flexibility and variability to do things however you wish to do it. I may be Han Solo in one game where I'm really great about moving around the galaxy and delivering illegal cargo, but as one game I could be Boba Fett, capturing all these rebels and then delivering to other people. It's up to you on how you want to play the game, and you don't have to play the way that they do in the movie. It's up to you on how you want to do that. One of the great things, too, is that there's a large amount of narrative in the game, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I mean, on each of these cards, there's some sort of text for you to read if you choose to read it. You don't have to. I did, of course. And just to what you were saying about about being Han Solo, I happened to get Chewbacca. If I had been Han Solo, then you just get Chewbacca, which is really nice. But I was Boba Fett, so instead I collected the bounty on him, of course.
I mean, that's awesome. You can recruit him as a crew member and have him ride along in the Millennium Falcon with you and give you all these special benefits. However, as a bounty hunter, you want to go over to capture him if someone's playing Han to kind of decrease their ability to do things in the game as well. The one thing I absolutely love about this game, and it cannot be overlooked, is the engine building. Like, you are truly building up your character. You have mods for gear, all these different equipment that you're going to add. You're doing all these different bounties and jobs that enhance your character. And then you have your ship that you're upgrading as well with all of these different types of mods on it and weapons on it. And you're upgrading these throughout the game. It feels like you're building this really unique engine. And you can put, Han Solo in Slave 1 if you want. It's up to you on how you wish to pursue it, but there's this really neat component of building up your character through the course of the game.
All these cards that we're getting and building that engine, as you say, with, are also ways for us to help in combat. We didn't talk a ton about combat.
No, we didn't talk at all about combat,
we said there is combat, but you use the dice for combat. And I typically am not turned off by dice games, but when it comes to combat specific dice, that I tend to have a hard time with that. And so in this game, I was able to have cards that helped me mitigate the dice. For instance, like this hired help crew that I brought on that allowed me to choose a skill that I might need for a test before that skill test. Or I think there's gear that allows you to change one of the die from a focus to an actual hit. And those kind of things were really nice to be able to build in around to help with the combat.
And you can build your character to either be really good at ground combat or really good in space combat, or a mixture of both, or avoid combat altogether and just do other types of things to earn fame. The other thing I'll mention too is the variability in the game. As I said, you can mix your pilot with different types of ships. You have all these different tokens that are on the board that are randomly placed at the start of the game. All these contact tokens are going to be different each time that you play it. the data bank cards have a wide range of different things. So if you're looking even at number 1, there's 4 different number 1s. So you may go to a game of sabacc one time and have a friendly game of sabacc. The next time you may have a very cutthroat game of sabacc. The next time it may be something very, very different, which is fantastic within the game. There's a lot of different cards that you're going to be cycling through every single game. It's just a lot of variability. And even if you want it even more variable, the game suggests that you set it up this way with the map in this very particular order. However, you can mix and match these. It will make the game a little more imbalanced, but it's also going to make it even more variable for the player. So if you've played a couple times, it gives you the option to do something even more different in the game. That's my spiel for positives. Do you have any other positives?
I think that covers it for me as well.
Okay, let's get into the negatives. There's 2 ways I'm going to break down my negatives. One is by the preferences I like about games. These are things that maybe nitpicking about, things that annoy me in games, and then I have some actual structural problems I have with the game. I'll talk first about my preferences. One is the board layout. Like the board layout, I appreciate what they're trying to do, and they're making it very different. I appreciate that they could actually add on and make it like a round circle where the galaxy expands, and that's really neat. However, if I'm sitting at the table in a very different way, every time I look at the cards, I have to twist my body or pick up these cards. And with so much text on these cards, you have to know what these all say. You have to figure out, okay, where does this require me to go to deliver this bounty? Where does this job need to be completed? What is this going to add to my ship? And if you're not familiar with the cards, and there's a lot of cards, you're going to constantly be moving around, trying to reach around the board to get stuff. So it's just very disjointed when you look at it.
Yeah, I have to agree. I found one of the things that frustrated me the most was needing to reach. For instance, when I have Boba Fett as my character, I can look at a contact secretly where I'm at. So if I'm on the other side of the rim here, I need you to help me out, but I can't really let you see it. So I'm knocking stuff over on the way, and I find that very frustrating in addition to just having to keep track of everything out on the board.
Again, that's super nitpicky of me, but that's just a total preference. They could have probably done the same thing with a large map and then expanded that map out with expansions, which are surely to come. The other thing that's nitpicky for me is the dice. Kira labeled that there is some mitigation in the game, but however, it does boil down a lot of times to the tests that you're doing and the combat that you're doing in the game is dice based. So if you roll poorly and you have no way on your ship to be able to mitigate that, you're probably going to have less fun with the game than you typically would. And with such a strong narrative in the game and based around Star Wars, I think a lot of people want to go in there and experience things and be able to do things with their characters that they could typically do in the movies. And in this game, you could be failing a lot or you could be succeeding a lot, and it's really up to the dice to be able to determine that for you.
Yeah, I agree. And I learned that in the first game, and why I went for more cards that helped me with that in the second game in order to help me along. And that kind of feels less variable. It feels like I have to do this in order to defend myself or accomplish my missions.
One thing I will say about the dice before we get back into the negatives, I do like the way that they handled the traits in the game. Without getting too deep into it, the more traits you have of very particular types, it helps you with that dice roll. So you either are unskilled, which require critical hits, skilled, which only require 1 hit, and then highly skilled. So if you have multiple traits of the same type, it's very easy to roll. And the way they handle that, it's very cool within the game. However, again, it boils down to how you roll. Do you have anything negative? And I'll get to my structural ones in a moment.
Yeah, so I have 2 things really, and one of them was the
patrols.
ships, the patrols coming after us. They didn't really hinder me as much as I thought they would. You almost have to go out of your way to get involved with them. There were a couple of times where I felt like they were really messing with my plans, but overall they were kind of a non-issue. I forgot about them at times, and really getting more of them out there gives you more ability to gain fame, but I just didn't care that much about them.
Yeah, I think that's probably something that can be fixed with an expansion. The board is so expansive that you don't see it from the circle, but there's a lot of nodes on here, and the ships don't move a lot. In fact, the ships are only going to move when you buy something from the market. Each of these different cards, when you buy it, a new card's going to replace it, and when that happens, it's going to tell you what kind of ship is going to move, or one of these 4 patrols, and how many spaces. So if you're not buying a lot from the market, these ships aren't going to move. They're going to stay pretty stationary. There are cards, again, that allow you to move those at your own free will, but they're very few and seldom to come up. Do you have anything else?
Yeah, so I think my next negative probably leads into what you're going to talk about, and that is that it is incredibly long for what it is.
Yeah.
I like the game Firefly, and it's a long game, and it's super thematic, and I love playing it because of what it is. And I don't have to deal with dice, and I don't have some of the issues that I had with this game. If I'm going to break out a game that's going to take me 2 to 3 hours or more to play, I'm probably going to take Firefly over this just because of what I get out of the game, even though I had fun playing this.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. We've played this game multiple times just between her and I. We have not played with 3 and 4 players. However, each game that we've played of this as a 2-player game has lasted at least 2 hours, which is a long game for this style of game. Plus, not to mention, there is a lot of downtime. When you're reading these cards and trying to make the best possible decisions for you, and if you want to get into the narrative of the game itself, there's going to be a lot of downtime in between turns. In fact, so much that you maybe have players in a 3 and 4 player game where they just completely tune out, get on their phone, get on their iPad, which is understandable for the game length that they're looking for. However, I feel like it's a hurdle for people to get past, especially a hurdle for us. Plus, the last thing I'll mention is that there is a lot to remember. Once you start building this engine with your cards, there are times, there's so much stuff going on with this keying off something else on your ship and keying off something else on a card that's out or a token that's out or having something on their ship, that it's very easy to forget what's going on. In fact, I have one card here that I want to give an example from. This is called For a Gift for Jabba, and thematically it's awesome. We're trying to take a Rancor to Tatooine to give to Jabba the Hutt. However, anytime you are defeated in combat, you have to lose a crew. Now, if someone isn't watching this card and they get defeated in combat, they could very easily forget this. And the text is so small, and there's a lot of these examples throughout the game that there's just a lot to keep track of. There's a tracking thing that you have to be aware of when you play the game. So it's not super gateway-y, but it is definitely geared more towards gamers who are really going to get into the text of the game.
Yeah, and I think that is part of what adds to the length of the game, because I found that we constantly were like, oh wait, don't I have a thing? Oh wait, doesn't this do that? Don't you have a thing that does this? And that was not just for things like that, but also even for the dice combat.
Yeah.
Where we're just having to track so many different things. And I'm not sure what the solution is for that, other than, like you said, it's not really meant for that gateway gamer.
Yeah. So that's our pros and cons. And to be quite honest, I'm not sure how I feel about the game. I like what it's doing. I love the fact that it's such a thematic game in the Star Wars universe. I love the idea of being able to approach the game in a variety of different ways and still be competitive. One game I played as Han Solo, just delivering cargo, and I did really well. This game, I did nothing but kill patrols. Like, I went out there with the sole purpose of doing combat with one of my players and doing it. So you have the option of approaching it very differently. However, all those other little things just kind of nag at me, and I don't know how I feel, if I love it or if I don't love it, or if I'm just somewhere in between.
I think right now, like I said, I'd probably get out Firefly first if I had both of these sitting on my shelf and I wanted to spend that amount of time playing the game. However, I enjoyed it enough that I'm actually excited to see what happens when, like, these little ends here come off of the outer rim here, because it's clearly meant to expand. They've done something here that can be expandable, and I think we'll see some of the little nitpicky issues we have kind of go away. I mean, we've seen that from FFG in the past. I think we'll see it with this game, and I will definitely play an expansion for this.
Yeah, looking forward to trying it with more players, although I know it's going to be quite a long game. This one's called Star Wars Outer Rim, 1 to 4 players that can be played solo. We didn't try that. We may try that. I don't know. If you guys have any questions about it, make them in the comments below. Subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and we will catch you guys next time.